Some rock stars trashed hotel rooms. These guys, believe it or not, had their entire lives wrecked by run-ins with the law. We are about to pull back the curtain on the true stories of heavy metal musicians whose lives took a dark turn, leading to courtroom battles, prison sentences, and legacies forever changed. You won't believe what the singer of a famous Christian metal band did, leading to a shocking undercover operation. It's a collection of tales so wild you'll have to read them to believe them. 1. Ian Watkins from Lost Prophets. This first story is a tough one. Maybe the darkest one you will ever hear about a musician. The band Lost Prophets came from a country called Wales, and for a while they were on top of the world. They weren't pure heavy metal, more like a popular alternative rock band with some heavy guitar riffs that got them played on every radio station. Their singer, Ian Watkins, was the face of the band. He was seen as a cool, charismatic frontman, the kind of rock star kids looked up to. They had #1 albums, played in huge stadiums for thousands and thousands of fans, and seemed to have a squeaky clean image compared to many other bands. Behind this massive success, Ian Watkins was hiding a secret life that was more horrible than anyone could ever imagine. He was involved in some of the worst, most disgusting crimes possible, and they all involved very young children, including babies. When the police finally caught on, the details that came out during the investigation were so stomach-churning that they made people physically sick. It was a level of evil that is hard to even talk about. The most chilling part was that he had been documenting his awful behavior, leaving a trail of evidence that put him away for a very, very long time. The police found a shocking amount of material he had collected and created himself. He was given a sentence of 29 years and is currently locked up in a high-security prison in the United Kingdom, a place reserved for the absolute worst offenders. His bandmates released a statement saying they were completely heartbroken and disgusted, insisting they had no idea what he was doing behind their backs. They broke up the band immediately, understanding that they could never again be connected to his name or the horror he was responsible for. Their music, once popular and loved, was completely erased from the airwaves overnight. Watkins's evil was a secret that not only destroyed his own life, but also shattered the lives of his victims and the legacy of everyone he ever worked with. Watkins's evil was a secret he kept hidden from everyone. But our next metal musician's crime was a loud, public, and terrifyingly real spectacle of recklessness. 2. Vince Neil from Motley Crue. Get ready for a tale of rock and roll excess that ended in absolute tragedy. Let's head back to the 1980s on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, a time of big hair, loud guitars, and non-stop parties. The undisputed kings of this scene were Motley Crue, a band that tore through the 80s with their wild antics and shredding riffs. Their frontman, Vince Neil, was the voice behind huge anthems like Girls, Girls, Girls and Kickstart My Heart. He was a charismatic showman who lived the high life harder than almost anyone else. The band was famous for their insane behavior, but in 1984, the party came to a crashing, tragic halt. After a long day of partying, a very intoxicated Vince Neil got behind the wheel of his fancy sports car. Riding with him was his good friend Nicholas Razzle Dingley, the drummer for the Finnish glam rock band Hanoi Rocks. On a wet Hollywood street, Neil lost control of the car and smashed head-on into another vehicle. The two people in the other car were seriously injured, but the worst was yet to come. Razzle, the beloved drummer, did not survive the crash. The metal scene was completely rocked. One of its brightest young stars was gone in an instant because of the reckless actions of another. Vince Neil was convicted of vehicular manslaughter. In a decision that still makes people angry to this day, he served just 30 days in jail. He also had to pay $2.6 million in restitution and was given 5 years of probation. For many, it felt like a slap on the wrist for a crime that took a life. Years later, in 2010, he faced the law again for driving under the influence, proving that his demons and his bad decisions followed him long after the party of the 80s was over. It's a story of fame, recklessness, and a legacy that will forever be stained by a tragedy that could have been avoided. Vince Neil's story is one of a party gone wrong. Our next musician, however, wasn't partying. He was plotting something cold and calculated against his own family. 3. Tim Lambesis from As I Lay Dying. The band was As I Lay Dying, a group from San Diego known for their intense performances and thought-provoking lyrics. What made them really stand out, though, was their identity as a Christian metal band. Their frontman, Tim Lambesis, was a powerful vocalist and the driving force behind the band's success, with albums that charted high and a massive loyal fan base that connected with their messages of faith and struggle. He was a muscular, tattooed, and seemingly devout leader of one of the biggest bands in the scene. But in 2013, a shocking and sinister plot came to light that shattered that image forever. Lambesis was arrested after attempting to hire an undercover police officer who was posing as a hitman to take the life of his estranged wife. The plan was uncovered during a well-organized sting operation. The secret recordings revealed that Lambesis had provided the undercover officer with detailed instructions, his wife's address and schedule, and even a payment to carry out the awful act. It was a cold and calculated plan that stunned the metal community, especially given the band's Christian themes of forgiveness and redemption. The hypocrisy was almost too much to believe. The court case revealed that Lambesis' actions were influenced by personal turmoil in his marriage and his use of steroids, which he claimed had warped his thinking. Of course, this did not excuse his behavior. He was found guilty of solicitation of murder and was sentenced to 6 years in prison in 2014. He served his time and was released in 2016. In a move that surprised everyone, he eventually reformed the band and has tried to make a comeback. But his crime remains a dark and unforgettable chapter in metalcore history, a chilling example of the darkness that can hide behind a righteous public image. Tim Lambesis plotted a crime but was caught. Our next musician's crime was a sudden, brutal act that made him one of the most infamous figures in all of music. 4. Varg Vikernes from Burzum. Not all of these stories come from heavy metal's mainstream. Sometimes the darkness hides deep in the underground, and few are as notorious as Varg Vikernes, the mastermind behind the Norwegian black metal project Burzum. Known for his chilling atmospheric music and his provocative beliefs, Varg was a central figure in the early 90s black metal scene in Norway, a movement that was already steeped in controversy and chaos. It was a small, tight-knit group of young musicians who wanted to create the most extreme and anti-Christian music possible, and they were willing to take their beliefs from their lyrics into the real world. In 1993, Varg's life took a deadly turn. He was arrested in Norway for the brutal passing of Øystein Arseth, known as Euronymous, the guitarist of the legendary band Mayhem, and the owner of the record store that was the center of the black metal scene. The incident was the result of a power struggle and a personal feud that had been boiling over. It all ended one night when Varg went to Euronymous' apartment and a violent confrontation broke out, where Varg ended the other man's life with multiple stab wounds. As if that wasn't enough, he was also convicted of arson for burning down several beautiful and historic wooden churches in Norway, acts that were tied to the black metal scene's aggressive anti-religious ideas. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison, which was Norway's maximum penalty at the time, in 1994. Varg served 15 years of that sentence and was released in 2009. He has since continued to make music and promote his extreme views online. His crimes remain one of the most infamous chapters in music history, casting a dark shadow over the black metal genre and forever linking his name to real-world violence and extremism. Varg's crime was the most notorious of the black metal scene, but he wasn't the only one from that group who crossed the line from making scary music to committing a terrible act. 5. Faust from Emperor. Let's stay in the shadowy heart of Norwegian black metal, where the music is as dark as the deeds. The band Emperor is considered by many to be one of the most talented and important bands to ever come out of that scene. They crafted chilling symphonic masterpieces with their drummer, Bård Eithun, who went by the stage name Faust, driving their apocalyptic sound. He was a key member of the black metal inner circle alongside Varg Vikernes and Euronymous. But in 1992, before the more famous crimes of that scene took place, Faust crossed a line into infamy all on his own. In a brutal act that shocked even the chaotic black metal community, he ended the life of a man named Magni Andreasen in a park in Lillehammer, Norway. According to Faust's own confession, the man had made an unwanted advance toward him. Instead of simply leaving, Faust led the man into the woods and, in a twisted act of rage, took his life with a knife. For over a year, the crime remained unsolved. Faust kept his dark secret and continued to play drums for Emperor as their fame grew. It was only when the police started investigating the church burnings that they began to question everyone in the scene, including Faust. He eventually confessed to the crime. He was convicted in 1994 at the same time as Varg Vikernes and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. He served 9 years before walking free in 2003. Unlike Varg, Faust has shown remorse for his actions and has successfully returned to music, even winning awards with other bands. His story, however, remains a chilling part of black metal's chaotic history. The Norwegian black metal scene was defined by shocking acts. Our next story involves another legendary band, Judas Priest, and a crime that was a deep betrayal of trust. 6. Dave Holland from Judas Priest. Judas Priest are true pioneers of the genre. They delivered earth-shattering albums like British Steel and Screaming for Vengeance, and for a decade, from 1979 to 1989, their relentless drummer Dave Holland was the man keeping the beat. His thunderous, powerful rhythms defined an era of leather and steel. He was part of the band during their rise to global superstardom, playing on some of the most iconic metal songs ever recorded. But in 2004, years after he had left the band, a bombshell dropped that tarnished his legacy forever. Holland was arrested in the United Kingdom for a series of truly awful crimes. He was accused of committing inappropriate actions, including attempted rape, against a teenage boy who had a learning disability. The most disgusting part was that Holland was the boy's drum teacher. He was in a position of power and trust, and he abused it in the worst way possible. The metal community was floored. The court case uncovered a chilling betrayal. The evidence showed that Holland had taken advantage of a vulnerable student, and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to 8 years behind bars. He was released in 2012 after serving his time, but his crime left a permanent and ugly scar on his legacy and on the storied history of the band he once played for. It was a grim and disgusting reminder that even metal legends can fall into a darkness from which there is no coming back. The betrayal of trust is a terrible crime. Our next musician also used his position of power, but he did it to take advantage of the very fans who adored him. 7. Austin Jones, the cover artist. This story is about someone who got famous in a very modern way. Austin Jones wasn't in a huge touring band at first. He became well known on YouTube. He made a name for himself by taking popular pop songs and redoing them in a heavy metal or rock style. He was really good at it, and he got millions and millions of views. He built a huge online following, mostly made up of young fans who loved his music and his friendly, approachable personality online. He seemed like a cool, down-to-earth guy who was just happy to be making music for his followers. But behind that friendly personality, he was doing something terrible. He was using his fame and his connection with his fans to take advantage of them. He would message some of his younger female fans and pressure them into sending him inappropriate videos of themselves. He would make them feel like it was a special secret just between them, a sign that they were his favorite fans. It was a huge abuse of his power and their trust, and he did it over and over again. Eventually, 2 of his victims were brave enough to come forward and tell the police what was happening. When the FBI investigated, they found out he had been doing this to many girls. It was a disgusting and predatory pattern of behavior. He was arrested, and the truth came out shocking all of his followers who had seen him as a harmless internet star. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his crimes and is still there right now. His earliest possible release date isn't until the end of 2027. His story is a chilling warning about the dark side of online fame. Austin Jones's terrible choices hurt the very people who supported him. Our next musician is also in prison today for possessing material that is just as disgusting. 8. Carl Logan from Manowar. Manowar has been hailed as the kings of metal for decades, with bombastic songs about battles, glory, and heavy riffs that pack arenas worldwide. Their guitarist, Carl Logan, was a key part of that thunderous sound, delivering shredding solos and helping define their larger-than-life image since he joined in the mid-90s. He was the quiet, technical wizard behind the band's bombastic sound. But in 2018, a police raid on his home in North Carolina uncovered something far darker than any fantasy lyric. Federal agents discovered a massive collection of child exploitation material on his devices. We're talking about hundreds of videos and images depicting the abuse of very young children. It was a horrifying betrayal that had nothing to do with the band's theatrical persona and everything to do with real-world depravity. The evidence was overwhelming, leading to his immediate arrest. The band acted swiftly, kicking him out and publicly denouncing him, saying his actions were something they could never stand for. The court didn't go easy. In 2022, Carl Logan pleaded guilty to multiple counts of possessing and exploiting child pornography. He was sentenced to 5.5 years in federal prison, where he remains today. He is not eligible for early release until at least 2027. His awful actions not only ended his career, but also tarnished a legacy that once inspired legions of fans around the world. It's a grim reminder that sometimes the heroes on stage are hiding the most monstrous secrets. Some crimes are hidden away on a computer. The next musician's trouble with the law was very public and played out for the whole world to see. 9. Jon Schaffer from Iced Earth. Jon Schaffer is a name that is legendary in American heavy metal. He's the founder, main songwriter, and guitarist for the band Iced Earth. For decades, they have been a powerhouse, known for their fast, epic songs about history, fantasy, and American patriotism. Jon was the undisputed leader, the guy everyone looked up to. He had a reputation for being very intense and having very strong opinions about the world, especially about politics and the government. Well, in January of 2021, those strong opinions got him into a world of trouble. He was part of a huge protest in Washington, D.C. that turned into a massive mess at the U.S. Capitol building. Pictures and videos from that day showed Jon right in the middle of it all, inside the building, confronting police officers. He was even seen wearing a hat from a far-right group. He wasn't just a face in the crowd. He was identified by the FBI as one of the people who pushed past the barriers and went inside. Soon after, his face was all over the news, and he had to turn himself in to the police. He was facing some very serious charges for his part in the whole event. He ended up being the first person from the riot to plead guilty and make a deal with the government, agreeing to share information in exchange for a lighter sentence. His actions had huge consequences. All of his bandmates quit, and his side projects fell apart. He ended up with probation and avoided a long prison sentence, but the incident effectively destroyed the band he had built over 30 years and made him a notorious figure for reasons that had nothing to do with music. Jon's crime was a very public and political one, but our next musician's trouble with the law was much more personal, a story that is as unique as it is inspiring. 10. Jason Everman from Nirvana and Soundgarden. Let's dive into the gritty, rain-soaked world of grunge and metal in the 90s, where the lines between genres blurred and the riffs hit you right in the chest. In the heart of this scene in Seattle, Washington, a musical revolution was brewing, and one man, Jason Everman, found himself in the unbelievable position of being in not one, but two of the most legendary bands in rock history, right on the very cusp of their world-changing fame. Jason Everman has one of the strangest and most fascinating stories you will ever hear. First, he was a bassist for a little band called Nirvana during their very early days. He even appears on the cover of their first album, the raw and heavy record called Bleach. Truth be told, though, he didn't actually play a single note on the album. He had joined right after it was recorded, and he famously paid the $600 needed for the recording session out of his own pocket. He was more of a financial backer and a temporary live member than a creative force. He toured with them, a quiet guy with long hair standing next to Kurt Cobain, but the chemistry just wasn't right. He was out of the band before they went on to record Nevermind and become the biggest band in the world. Then, in a twist of fate that seems impossible, he immediately joined another legendary Seattle band, Soundgarden, this time as a guitarist. He toured with them as they were supporting their sludgy, heavy masterpiece, Louder Than Love. His heavy, powerful playing helped lay the groundwork for tracks that would define a generation of heavy music. Think about that for a second. He was in Nirvana and Soundgarden, two of the pillars of 90s rock, right before they both exploded into global superstardom. It's a classic case of being in the right place at the almost right time. But after he left the music scene entirely, feeling like he didn't quite fit in, his life took a chaotic turn. In 1993, he was arrested in New York City for possessing illegal substances and for disorderly conduct. After being on the edge of rock royalty, he found himself in handcuffs, facing the law's wrath. He served a very brief amount of jail time and paid some fines. For many, this could have been the start of a downward spiral, a sad footnote in rock history. But for Jason, it was a footnote before a truly incredible new chapter. Instead of falling deeper into trouble, Jason Everman did something almost no one would expect. He traded his guitar for a rifle. He completely reinvented himself, joining the U.S. Army. And he didn't just join, he excelled. He became an Army Ranger and then a member of the elite Special Forces, serving multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. After his highly decorated military career, he did another 180-degree turn. He went to the prestigious Columbia University and earned a degree in philosophy. It's a wild tale of a metal warrior who had a minor brush with the law, left the world of music behind entirely, and found a new and profound purpose in two of the most demanding fields on earth. Jason Everman's story is one of redemption. The next musician's story is also about finding a new path, but only after his time in jail forced him to start over from scratch. 11. Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse. Let's jump into a more modern scene, the world of mid-2000s scenecore, a time of tight jeans, swoopy hair, and a new wave of bands that blended catchy pop hooks with intense screamed vocals. In the middle of this explosion was a singer named Ronnie Radke, the frontman for a Las Vegas band called Escape the Fate. They got famous fast. Ronnie was the total package, a charismatic and incredibly talented singer who could belt out a soaring melody one second and unleash a guttural scream the next. But he was also a lightning rod for drama, known for his wild, outspoken, and often volatile personality. Back in 2006, when he was still a young up-and-comer, that volatility boiled over into a really bad situation in the Las Vegas desert. A fight broke out over a dispute that had started earlier. Ronnie and some of his friends were there, and the other group showed up. It was a chaotic scene that quickly got out of hand. During the fight, one of the men involved in the altercation ended another young man's life. It was a huge and tragic mess. Now, Ronnie himself didn't pull the trigger, but because he was there and had a role in the battery that led to the bigger fight, he got into big trouble with the law. He was given probation, which is like a second chance from the court where you have to stay out of trouble and follow a strict set of rules. But Ronnie didn't. For a touring rock star, Staying completely clean and checking in with an officer is tough, and he failed to follow the rules of his probation. So the judge decided his second chance was up and sent him to prison. He ended up serving about 2.5 years. While he was locked up, his old band, Escape the Fate, made the decision to move on without him and hired a new singer. It seemed like his career was over. But Ronnie spent his time in jail writing songs, planning his next move. He was filled with anger and a desire for revenge. As soon as he got out, he started a new band called Falling in Reverse. Many of their early hit songs are about his anger, his betrayal by his old friends, and his experiences behind bars. His time in jail became a central part of his story and his outlaw image, which has helped fuel his massive success ever since. He turned his lowest point into his biggest strength. Some musicians go to jail for hurting people, but what if you get thrown in jail just for the kind of music you play? 12. Arsames from Iran. Let's go to the country of Iran, where the government has extremely strict religious laws that control almost every aspect of daily life, including art and music. In the West, playing heavy metal might annoy your parents, but in Iran, it can land you in a world of trouble. This is the story of a band called Arsames. Two friends, Nikan Khosravi and Arash Ilkhani, started the band because they loved the music. They wanted to create their own heavy, aggressive death metal sound in a place where that kind of music is not just unwelcome, it's considered a crime. They knew they were taking a huge risk every time they picked up their instruments. Playing this kind of music in Iran requires incredible courage. The members of Arsames, including vocalist Ali Rezaieh and guitarist Reza Mousavi, had to operate in total secrecy. They would hold secret practices in basements, play for small, hidden crowds, and share their music through underground online networks. They were constantly looking over their shoulders, knowing that the authorities viewed their loud guitars, fast drums, and roaring vocals as satanic and a corrupting influence from the West. In 2023, that risk caught up to them. The members were arrested by the authorities. They were charged with a long list of serious crimes, including playing satanic music and creating propaganda against the state. The government looked at their song lyrics, their band's artwork, and their image, and decided that they were a threat to their strict cultural rules. The musicians were thrown in prison and faced the possibility of incredibly harsh punishments. They managed to get out on bail and made the brave and heartbreaking decision to flee their own country. They left their homes, their families, and everything they knew behind, escaping to find safety in Norway, a country known for its thriving metal scene where they could play their music freely. But even after they escaped, the court in Iran held their trial anyway and sentenced them to prison. They can never go home because if they do, they will be thrown in jail just for playing heavy metal. Their story is a powerful reminder of the courage it takes to be a metalhead in some parts of the world and the high price some people have to pay for their art.